Peace. Sifu L. Once again, dropping science. This time it's going to be political science. Um, let's talk about a little history that has happened here in this country. Let's talk about the Moroccan Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787 and why a lot of you guys don't know what is this. Well, once you go on Yale's website, and why don't you research it and check it out and see what it is. And why don't you see George Washington talking to the great and magnanimous Sultan of Morocco, and go see what they were talking about. Now, the reason this is significant is because the state of Morocco, as it exists today, did not have its existence until 1956 and have the flag, the crimson flag with the green pointed 5-pointed star. Now, George Washington, so-called, cut down the proverbial cherry tree. This was not a cherry tree. This was a flag. This is the same flag. Now, here's the significance. The significance is that George Washington in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship was not talking to the Sultan of a state of Morocco. He was talking to a Sultan of an empire, a previously existing empire. The history in Americas, they don't teach you this, okay? Because it benefits them not to teach you this. But the U.S. was given a 50-year mandate in this treaty, and there's a lot of details about this you need to check out. So back to George Washington cutting down a tree, or the cherry tree. It was this flag, okay? He was declaring war. When you chop down someone's flag, it's declaring war. So a lot of these Spanish-American wars, and against the British and all this stuff, and on the high seas, there was other wars going on in history that they don't tell you about. Let's move a little bit further, okay? If you don't know who the prophet nobledralee is, you need to check him out, okay? Nobledralee started teaching publicly in 1913 in Newark, New Jersey, okay? Now, let's move it back to 1911, okay? 1911, before he started teaching publicly, he met with the President Woodrow Wilson at the time, and he knew all the right things to say, the proper passwords and tokens to get to where he was at, okay? He was initiated in the pyramids. He was an adept master, and he was a Mason. When he got to the degree of Shriners, he learned about Islam. Okay, now Masons, when they become Shriners, they take on a Mason or an Islamic name, and you can see it on their fez. Okay, and we know a fez is national headdress. Okay, it's for noblemen. Okay, so nobledralee in 1911 met up with Woodrow Wilson, and in private, he obtained the flag back. He got the flag back. Okay. In 1928, the prophet, in the Pan American Conference in Havana, Cuba, the prophet was recognized as the head of the nation, and it's this biggest sleeping giant on the planet right now. Okay, let's move a little bit back. Okay, I'm saying a lot, but I want you to research this. Now, 1911, something very significant also happened. Edward Mandell House wrote a private letter to Woodrow Wilson. Now, Edward Mandell House was Woodrow Wilson's handler, because every president has a handler, someone who kind of is behind the scenes dictating what they should do, writing their speeches, etc. Now, Edward Mandell House was bragging about this great plan that he came up with. And in this letter, it says that with this plan, they will monetize the American people's soul and your biological property. He speaks about Social Security, and he talks about birth certificates. Okay, why is this significant? Okay, nobledralee got the flag in 1911, same fucking year. Okay, 1913, nobledralee started teaching publicly. 1914, we have the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act is basically setting up for the Federal Reserve banks. Okay, now we have World War I and we have the Great Depression. The Great Depression was orchestrated to have an effect on the people. And what happened was they came up with, in 1933, President Roosevelt came up with the New Deal. And because everybody was desperate, the American people were desperate and in dire straits. So they accepted this like it was the greatest thing. Let you know that before 1933, there was no birth certificate. Before 1933, there was no Social Security Administration. This is how they monetized your soul and your biological property. Every birth certificate has a monetary value, and they hold our birth certificates in collateral for the national debt. So in actuality, the more debt we have, the more rich we are. Okay? It's a big game. Now check this out. Before this, the only real money was gold and silver. And that was the only real money. So now in the New Deal, every American citizen had to hand in their gold and silver in exchange for this Federal Reserve note debt instrument. Okay? So now no real money is in circulation. Okay? And your labor, money that you can make over a lifetime, holds the collateral for the national debt. And this is what's been going on. Everybody is enslaved. Okay? They switched from common law to admiral maritime law. And admiral maritime law is conducting commerce and trades on the open seas. So now what you have is a birth certificate that looks like very much like a warehouse receipt. And you have a social security number. In all capitals your name is. It's called the law of Capitis Maximus. And this is where they take you and turn you into a corporation. You are their slave. And this is what's going on in society to this day. So we have to wake up, people. You can research everything I'm talking about, okay? Now the navel is where the umbilical cord is cut, right? Naval officer, okay? And the waters of creation that you come through is when you give birth, when the woman gives birth. So they're basically saying you're their property, you're their ship, and those are the waters that you came through in, okay? It gets deep because they just took the science and flipped it and bounced it, and they switched the laws. Okay? The only law of the land is common law, and there is no crime unless there's an injured party or a victim, and that injured party or victim has to write a statement against you, and there has to be a witness. Okay? So that's a lot that I covered. I don't want to go too much because otherwise the video won't load, but I can keep on going. Peace and blessings. Sifu ill. Research. Wake up. Peace.